Hello, my name's Macaskill. I am the project lead for the People as Partners project, which is a project designed to build confidence and capacity within the independent care sector. Under the auspices of Scottish Care, the project aims to build the ability of independent care home and care at home providers to deal with the opportunities and challenges which self-directed support will bring from April 2014. This short clip is an opportunity to share with you the main points of the regulations and guidance on self-directed support which have recently been published by the Scottish Government. "2013 is a significant year for self-directed support in Scotland. The bill was passed last November and became an Act of Parliament in January 2013. A few weeks ago, in April 2013, the regulations and statutory guidance for self-directed support were published by the Scottish Government. There then started a 12-week consultation period to seek the views of those who use services and who support people who use services, and those who provide services on the proposed recommendations. It is envisaged that enactment and the commencement of the bill, now the Act, will be in April 2014. The following presentation is part of the People and Partners consultation process. We identified during our consultation that there were a number of areas of particular concern to independent providers in the care at home and residential care sector. In this presentation, we will go through each of these in turn. Before we begin, however, it's worth saying a couple of things about the nature of this guidance. The guidance is presented by government to give support to the professionals who will have to work to ensure the proper implementation of self-directed support. We hope that significant elements of the guidance will carry with it statutory powers to ensure that individuals seeking to access services and those who provide them will be properly supported by the strongest possible regulatory and guidance framework. Right at the start of the guidance, and indeed at the heart of the whole of the regulations and guidance, is something called the person's pathway. This is a step-by-step approach which tries to highlight what the experience of somebody new to social care or somebody being reassessed will be from April 2014. Let's look at this pathway in more detail. The first step is the identification by either yourself or a family member that you require support. You then have an initial contact with a local authority, officer or other professional. And this initial contact will be to help to determine whether or not you meet the eligibility for support within that local geographical area. Once it's decided that you do meet eligibility criteria, then an assessment will be undertaken. And this assessment will essentially be outcomes focused in nature. We'll chat a little bit later about what that means in practice. Once you have been assessed, then we begin the process of planning the support which will meet the needs which have been identified during your assessment. After that support plan has been developed, then it will be time to make a decision with the professional about how that support plan will be implemented. This will be signed off. Step 6 highlights the support which will ensure that you receive the service which you require and which will be provided by an independent person or a provider. And then the last step in the pathway is a system of monitoring and review to ensure that the pathway and the support is working effectively, and that any changes that may need to be made will be made. Throughout the guidance and the regulations, there is a strong emphasis on values and principles. These are at the heart of the Self-Directed Support Bill itself. They are the values of participation and dignity, the right to be involved in decisions made about you, to have informed choice which is real and meaningful, and at all stages to collaborate in decisions about the support that you may require. These are all underpinned by principles of respect, fairness, independence, freedom and safety. Throughout the guidance, we keep coming back to these core values and principles. Section 4 of the guidance describes eligibility and the assessment process. The eligibility criteria which are drawn up will be available in each geographical area of Scotland. For the first time, the guidance recommends that in drawing up the eligibility criteria which will be used locally, that local authorities should involve and include those who use services and those who provide services. Once the assessment process begins, the guidance particularly emphasises that this assessment should not be a tick box form filling exercise, but should be one which is based around what a person's assets are and what the outcomes they wish to achieve might be for their support. When it talks about outcomes, the guidance goes much further than perhaps previous guidance has. It talks about what are often called universal outcomes. These are things to do with having relationships and friendships, remaining in contact with those who are important in your life, living as independently as possible, being included within your community. In addition, there are basic needs and outcomes. These include health, safety, security, being nourished and being looked after. It's important that when an assessment is undertaken, that both the basic needs and the universal needs are met. Providers who've attended our consultation events have been concerned that within a resource-constraining environment, when money is extremely tight and short, that services will seek to meet the basic needs, and that these wider outcomes for older people of remaining independent, of remaining in contact and retaining friendships might be lost. The guidance also highlights that for providers of social care, the nature of outcomes, particularly the universal nature of outcomes, must be at the heart of all decisions made in the day-to-day care and support of those who use services, and not just at the start of somebody's contact with and time with an organisation. The guidance then goes on in more detail to describe particular areas. The first of these relates to risk. It's appreciated that as adults, individuals might exercise choice and make decisions which might put them at greater risk. It is important that we get the balance right between an individual's right to take risk and exercise choice and the duties on the part of a local authority and its officers to ensure that an individual is safeguarded and supported at all times. The guidance speaks about a proportionate approach to risk, balancing risk to enable a positive, informed and proportionate risk-taking. Many of our independent providers appreciate and value this proportionate approach. We would like there to be greater clarity within the guidance to ensure examples and case studies where we can see this proportionate model and proportionate approach. The guidance then begins to talk about resources. Resources, it highlights, are all the resources available to an individual. It speaks at length of an assets-based approach, an approach which recognises that all individuals have attributes, skills and knowledge which they can bring to their own support and care. It speaks about a person's inner strength and well-being, of relationships and connections to community, family and friends. It recognises that financial budgets only form part of the whole system of support around which a person is cared for. We welcome and value as an independent sector this recognition of the attributes and assets of an individual. However, many of our providers are concerned that for many older people, they live in situations where there is increasingly limited contact with others, where attributes and assets which they may previously have had and had access to are now significantly diminished. We would be concerned if there wasn't sufficient priority given to financial resourcing and appropriate budgeting for the care and support of older people. The guidance then goes on to describe the different financial and budgetary systems which would help to identify what budget an individual might be able to receive for their care and support. It does not wish to prescribe one single approach, but rather it talks about different models. It talks about an equivalence model, whereby a local professional would consider the equivalent amount of a budget comparing different people in similar situations. It talks about resource allocation systems, of which there are many models around the country. And these are systems which are aimed at ensuring transparent and equitable treatment for all individuals. And it lastly talks about the judgment of the individual professional and taking each case on a case-by-case basis. Our providers believe that for self-directed support to work effectively, there must be a fully transparent and fair system of budget and resource allocation. We have concerns that if individual professionals are left to make decisions on budgets on a case-by-case basis, or indeed to use an equivalence model, then the system and principle of transparency and fairness will be lost. Once a person has been assessed and their needs identified, and once that individual in their pathway has had a budget allocated to them, then they are faced with 4 options. We will deal later with the restrictions which may exist around option 1. The duties on the part of a local authority are to ensure that each individual requiring support is given information about what the options are, what they might mean for them as an individual, and to be supported to make a choice and a decision about which option best fits their needs. Option 1 is a direct payment, and this involves the individual taking complete control over the budget which they have been allocated. This might involve the individual in employing a personal assistant, or it might involve the individual in using that direct payment for the purchase of a piece of equipment, aid or adaptation. Option 2 allows the individual to pass the budgetary and financial responsibility over to a third party. And this is where an independent organisation, an independent provider, can make the arrangements of support for that person, ensuring that all employment and all other responsibilities are met by this third party. Option 3 is where the local authority continues and maintains financial responsibility for the budget of the individual. The individual must still continue to play as full a part as possible in decisions and choices made in relation to their care and support. The local authority may enable that support to be met by provision which is in-house, or it may use an independent or third sector provider to provide that care and support. Option 4 is a mix and match option. This enables the individual to select from a direct payment, support provided by a third party or support provided by the local authority, and to choose what is best to meet their particular needs and to achieve their outcomes. Many of the independent sector providers consider that there is considerable flexibility in option 4 for older individuals. At all times during the explanation of the options, the local authority professional must ensure that the information they give to the individual is as independent, fair and transparent as possible. Obviously, there are particular challenges if the local authority professional is trying to communicate in a balanced way what services are available and given and offered by the local authority, as well as services offered by third and independent sector organisations. Many of our providers during our consultation events believe that there is not sufficient stress within the guidance about how the local authority professional can ensure that the duty to give independent information is achieved. We would like to have seen a greater emphasis on the role and the responsibilities of independent brokers and independent advocacy services. The guidance then recognises the role that commissioning has within the sector. From April 2014, there are likely to be significant changes in the types of services and supports which people want and which people might request. In order to meet this challenge, the guidance recognises that we need to change the way in which we commission services. And it recommends a particular model in order to achieve that. It asks local parties, local authorities and other statutory agencies to collaborate with individuals who use services and those who provide them to assess what people really need in 21st century Scotland. To try to be experimental and creative after that identification process. To be innovative and experimental. And then it asks for a review to be undertaken and commissioning to be based upon that review. We would like to have seen much more within the guidance about how it is possible and how it will be possible to reshape the nature of services in the future. Many independent providers are eager and enthusiastic at adapting and changing their services, but we recognise the challenges of sustainability in difficult and austere financial circumstances. At the end of the guidance, there are two separate consultation issues which are raised. The first relates to reablement and intermediate care. and comes in a section which describes the role of the NHS professional. The section which describes the role of the NHS professional has been warmly received in the independent care sector. It highlights the importance of integrated and joint working, the importance of finally achieving integrated assessments so individuals don't have to answer the same questions time and time again. It reflects some of the good work which is already taking place in parts of Scotland, for instance in the Highlands. The consultation then asks whether or not reablement and intermediate care should explicitly be seen as forming part of the initial assessment process, and therefore the options in the Act around self-directed support, explicitly direct payments and having that support provided by a third or independent sector organisation should not be considered until the end of the assessment process, which would be a 12-week period. Many providers welcome this clarity. However, there are some who are concerned that instead of seeing the 12-week period as an optimum, a last mark, then that will be taken as the norm. We would like to see assessment carried out as timeously as possible, not least because many older people change quite considerably in the nature of their support over a 12-week period. Right at the end of the guidance, and specifically in relation to the regulations, there are a whole set of individuals who are excluded from having access to direct payments and a number of services which are excluded from direct payments. These include residential care and residential care with nursing. Many of our members are extremely concerned that were we to continue to exclude residential care from direct payments, then we would effectively be limiting the choice and support available to individuals who, in most instances, tend to be older. The whole principle and basis of self-directed support is to widen and extend choice and to increase individual control as much as possible. As a sector, we struggle to see how this is best achieved by limiting the choice of residential care from direct payments. Rather, we would like to see the baseline as being an inclusive one, and that only during an assessment or a support planning process should restrictions be placed, and those only on the basis of risk and only on the basis where an individual perceiving to use a direct payment for something or in a way which might be illegal. Our members strongly believe that residential care should be included, not just for older people, but so too should other restrictions be removed. For instance, on the part of those who are fleeing domestic violence or on those who are homeless. That presentation is a brief run through the guidance and the regulations which were published in April by Scottish Government. We have been asking Scottish Care members and others interested in supporting and caring for older people to give us their views on the guidance and the regulations. This process ends on the 10th of July. Thereafter, the Scottish Government and the Minister in particular will make their minds up about different elements of the guidance and regulations. They will take into account what not just we but other organisations have said. In September, the Minister will bring to Parliament the final statutory guidance and regulations. Once this happens, we will revisit each of the areas that we have looked at during this recording, and we will share with you the final guidance and regulations and highlight for you what that means for the independent care at home and care home sector. Thank you for watching and listening.